Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our November Klamath Film member meeting. I'm Kurt Lidke. I am the board chair for Klamath Film. I know this is a little odd saying this when everyone currently on the call knows each other, but it's for those who may be watching the recording and aren't aware what's going on. So we do these meetings once a month on the first Thursday from 6 to 8 o'clock. It's a chance to network, talk about things we're working on, announce any upcoming projects, showcase some things, and also welcome a guest. So our guest tonight is Terence Hines. He's an actor that's worked in Hollywood for many, many, many years. I guarantee you've seen him in at least something over the years, and maybe not have known it was him, but once he jumps on, you'll be like, oh, it's that guy. He's been in many films and television shows. So we're just going to have a chat about what it's like being a working actor. I do have a couple of quick announcements of things for us to roll through. And I know, Andrew, you have something you want to talk about as well, which is awesome. So first of
Yeah,
all,
I can bring that up anytime. Thank you.
well, let me jump through a couple of things first. So this is a announcement that came in from Nick Alexander Films. So Nick Alexander Films, Klamath Film members based in both Klamath Falls and Ashland. They are currently looking for an intern with a pathway to full-time employment with the company. They do a lot of commercial work. They film a lot of weddings. They do some narrative work. They were supposed to have a short film in our film festival, but they couldn't finish editing it in time. So if you know of someone that is interested in a pathway, I've passed this along to the digital media design program at KCC. I think it's also gone to Oregon Tech and SOU. But if you know anyone either in Klamath or in the Medford area that's interested in getting a foot in the door, the film industry, it's a good opportunity. So reach out to Nick Alexander Films. Additionally, it is election time for OMPA. And if you don't know what OMPA is, it is the Oregon Media Production Association, or sorry, Oregon Media Professionals Association. They are based out of Portland. They're the Oregon-wide governing body that promotes work in the entertainment industry in the state of Oregon. They do a lot of lobbying. They do a lot of events. There was an OMPA event last night in Ashland that I went to, the monthly Cameras and Cocktails event. It's just a casual get together, sort of like our meetings here, chance to talk about things that we're working on or what we do. And you can largely think of Klamath Film as a regional Klamath area hub of OMPA. And there's different offices all around the state that are part of the OMPA Veil. So they are up for elections for their board of directors, and they're seeking several open positions. So Andrew or Nina, if this is something you might be interested in, or it might be something that I may nominate myself for, someone who has an interest in the film industry in the state of Oregon, wants to be a part of the board that oversees the entire state for its direction and guidelines and a whole bunch of other things that come into play with OMPA in terms of how film productions are done in the state of Oregon.
If I
So,
can, may I raise my hand to get an email with that info? I'd love to be a part of that, or at least apply.
yeah, absolutely. Hey, Cassidy. Hello, hello. Yeah, it's
Awesome. Thank you.
I can forward the email of from that to you. I was just starting to get rolling. Welcome. I'm not sure if you saw, but Nick Alexander is looking for an intern right now, and we have OMPA elections that are going on. That's about as far as I've gotten here. We also have our own board elections. So our bylaws with Klamath Film state that every year in October, November-ish, we hold an election among all active Klamath Film members, and anyone who is an active member is essentially thrown into the pot as a nominee. And whoever gets the most votes is elected to a one-year term on our board. Now, we did have Joyce Dickens and Bowen Browder be elected last year. Their terms have now expired. And so we now have vacancies on our board for the next year. So the idea is that we have regulars that are elected to 3-year terms. That includes myself and Chuck here. And then we have individuals that serve just 1-year time frame as well. So I see our guest is already coming on board. I didn't even get through all of this stuff. Andrew, do you want to talk about your exciting news, your big project?
Yeah, I'd love to. If everybody can see my icon on Zoom, I have changed my profile picture to our key art for a documentary that we are currently raising funds for. We've got about 3 hours left of our Kickstarter. We've reached our $40,000 goal, and we are working to, thank you, get as much support as we possibly can and share the news about our new film, Scored to Death. And what that is a documentary about horror movie music and the composers that make those soundtracks. So we've had interviews with some of the top composers in the entire horror genre. We've got an incredible proposition for anyone who wants to back in the producer level tiers for executive producer credit, regular producer credit, or associate producer. And we have some amazing rewards. And if anyone goes on to Kickstarter right now and looks up Scored to Death, you'll see us live until 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight EST.
Cool. And you do have a snippet of the film, at least in terms of like a trailer that you've put. That
I sure do.
you've put online. So I've had a chance to check that out a little bit.
We've got a trailer. We've got clips of a lot of composers talking about Bernard Herrmann and his score for Psycho. We've got the composer of Friday the 13th, Harry Manfredini, talking about making that music. The composer of the Saw films, Charlie Clouser, who used to be a member of Nine Inch Nails, has a clip that we've put online already. And those are available to watch now. So if anyone goes on Kickstarter, they can see some samples of what the film's going to look like.
Fantastic. And I see our guest is here already. Hey, Terence.
Hey, how you doing, Kurt?
We have a small crew tonight, but hopefully a few are just kind of fashionably late and will be joining us a little bit later on. I was just going through some announcements and then we were going to jump to introductions. So I guess this is a good a time as any to get into all of that. So first of all, I mean, everyone here knows me. I'm Kurt Lidke. I'm the board chair for Klamath Film, former executive director. I'm a filmmaker myself, videographer for Klamath Community College, commercial drone pilot, and I worked in Hollywood for about 12 years before I came up here. We will get into our guest here in just a minute, but let's go ahead and go around so that our guest can get a sense of who we all are. Chuck, you want to
Sure.
introduce yourself? Oh, I guess that mic isn't plugged in. Here.
I'm Chuck Edson, brand new to the board, basically, and came in at 77. I've finally became a social activist of sorts, very concerned about the political climate of our society these days, and studied a lot about the human condition and reached the conclusion that we're made to get along, but we certainly aren't. And I guess we can blame media for a fair amount of this, but
Right.
anyway, hopefully media can help us resolve it. Anyways, I've joined up with a group called Braver Angels, which is one of like 6,000 groups trying to help out, and nobody's heard of any of them. But anyway, I'm doing a little bit that I can. By the way, Nick, I just got an intern from OIT, and I'm not going to divulge your name. But anyway, so I've got some things going and have encountered some setbacks. I could use some more help on the technical side. I've been acquiring quite a lot of AV equipment and would like to start recording events once we start having them. So anyone out there who would like to help out, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Cassidy has her own mic there.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Cassidy.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Terrence. Hi, Cassidy. I started working for Klamath Film January of this year and became director over the summer. So obviously enjoy our Klamath Film work, and Kurt's been teaching me quite a bit. So thanks, Kurt, for leading the meetings as always. So anyway, so nice to meet you, Terrence. Thanks so much for joining tonight. Really excited to hear everything.
My
So.
pleasure.
Aw, thank you. And then Nina, hello once again. Thank you for joining us. Tell our guest a little bit about yourself.
My name is Nina Oberlin. I'm a production designer. Just kind of new at this. Right now I'm working on doing a horror film. It's kind of in the works, and then a couple of different animations. So just kind of getting my feelers out there with different things. I live in Lafayette, Oregon, so it's outside of Portland. Just like have a lot of different interests, but production design is what I focus a lot on, especially in animation. So, but it's great to have you here, Terrence.
Oh, yeah, it's great to be there. And you know, as a filmmaker, I know just how important the production designer is to any project. It's it's like a major part of presenting the theme, the idea, the message of the film, especially sometimes when you have a location or locations as a character in the film. The production designer is like right up there in importance. So I get it. Thank you.
And then Andrew as well, if you could introduce yourself to our guest.
Yes, hi Terrence. Thank you so much for being with us. First off, I'll say I'm a fan of your work, of course, and Always Sunny and Walter Mitty. So it's great to have you on with us. I am a filmmaker, producer, writer, and publicist. I have been actively working in the independent film, international film, and documentary film world for a good bit now, well over a decade. And I was formerly a journalist for the last 15 years. And I have been just recently getting involved in the Oregon film community and, of course, the Klamath Falls community, and it's been incredible. I moved here from Eastern Washington, where I was in Spokane. I've kind of bounced around all over the world because I was in the Air Force for 16 years, and landing here has been just fantastic. And I'm just excited to, see how everything goes with the growth here, and also whatever input you'd like to give about your thoughts on what we have in our neck of the Pacific Northwest and filmmaking world.
Well, Andrew, it's a pleasure meeting you and talking to you. You sound very excited about how things are going for you so far. You definitely
Thank you. I'm very thankful.
Well, yeah, and you come very well qualified to make a big mark in the community there. I was there just recently. I don't know if Kurt mentioned that, but I was there recently for the Portland International Film Festival, and I enjoyed myself. It was I could feel the passion that had been going on for a while in that community. And Kurt actually, he educated me on just how big of a deal Klamath has been in the past, in terms of filming and, events happening in the area. And it's on its way back up. So I look forward to seeing more from that.
Actually, I think that's
Awesome.
why we don't have some of our regulars here tonight, because I just realized tonight they're filming a feature film that's actually in town right now. Jeff.
There's a production going on.
Yeah, Jeff Gelman's film. So some of our regulars, in fact, one of them texted me some questions for you, Terrence. But some of our regulars who are actors or crew, I believe, are actually on set as we are having this meeting. And so that's why we have a little smaller group than we normally do for these. But they'll be able to go back and watch the recording. So it's all good.
Okay, I do want to, I have to make one little small request.
Yep.
I just got a notice that my phone that I'm doing this Zoom on needs to be plugged in. If you can give me just a second to grab my cord and plug.
Go do it. Do what you got to do. It's all good.
Thanks, buddy.
On that same note too, just today, actually, I've been having an email thread, and I was going to include that, Cassidy, with you. I'm not sure if I had a chance to check it yet. For those of you who were a part of our film festival in September, amongst our films, we had a world premiere of a film that was shot here locally last year called This Is Their Land. That was about a 15-minute long film all about the Modoc Wars of the 1870s, done by a film crew of college seniors from LA. They are now pitching that short as a feature-length film to production studios in LA and are getting good response. And so they're already preliminarily contacting us about location scouting and possible cast and crew calls and how we might be able to help out. Statewide incentives that are available for lodging, air, all the back end money stuff that goes on with film. But that would be very exciting if the short film that was so well received at our festival ends up becoming a major feature film. Michael said the conversation right now is at least 8 million in funding at this point already. So
That's
that's
awesome.
fantastic if that does come together. Especially, when you consider the landscapes, the lava beds is a really cool spot, but the lava beds today don't look like the lava beds of the 1870s because they drained the lake in the early 20th century. So the reality is, if they want it to look authentic to 1870s, they shot the short at the lava beds and just outside of it. But if they want it to tell the larger story, they're probably gonna have to shoot more so around Upper Klamath Lake and other areas on the Klamath side of the border, which means local incentives, local money coming into our community, local jobs. That would be a really big deal if that production came to our area. So that's really good news. And we have a couple other feature films that we've been talking to off and on for a while now that are also interested in possibly coming to Klamath too. So that's exciting. If that does come together, we have some prospects of some feature films in addition to the shorts that have been shooting here. And we have one feature film that's shooting right now as we speak. So with that, before we jump to our guest, does anyone have any sort of announcements? Or Andrew, I know you already ran through your Kickstarter, but any projects that we've been working on? Nina, I know you've been busy with puppetry. But anything else people have been working on that they're excited about or want to share?
Yeah, I can jump in real quick, directly related to what you were talking about, with projects coming to the local area. I'm currently in development on a co-production with international partners out of the UK for a horror anthology feature that will have 3 segments filming in the United States. 2 of my directors are out of LA, one is out of Atlanta. And what I want to do is have them fly in with their DPs and take advantage of all of the benefits and all of the incentives and everything here, along with crewing and equipment and locations, of course, and have that be part of this film that will get nationwide and international distribution, run through the festival circuit, eventually physical release, and on VOD with AMC, Shudder, and those partners that we've established with some of our previous releases. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's called Unboxed, and there's more info to come, and I'll absolutely keep everyone in the loop.
That sounds awesome. That's great, Andrew.
Sounds like Andrew's rocking it.
Yeah.
Trying, always trying.
I've just been shooting a lot of commercial work for KCC right now. We're building an apprenticeship center on campus. And so we have apprenticeship week coming up in a couple of weeks and then Giving Tuesday at the end of the month. And so I'm doing a lot of promo work for that and filming a lot of stuff with our mascot. Occasionally I'm the one in the mascot costume, which is always fun. But usually I'm the one filming a student that's in the costume. But just kind of doing I'm not having any opportunity of late to work on any of my own pet projects. It's all work related, doing promos for KCC, but that's keeping me plenty busy as is. And then Nina, what's the puppetry thing that you've been working on?
So I've been working on what's a tabletop puppet. It's kind of like, for my company, I created like kind of a little mascot. It's a little movie usher. He's a little zombie that goes around and introduces the films. So I've been working on building his puppet and getting him together. So, and I'm doing it in wood, and I've never done it in wood. So I've been taking a class trying to build it all in wood. So doing something a little different. Usually I do the armatures and everything in metal, but this is a little bit different. So that's kind of what he's about. And then I'm also working on another animation for next year's film festival, like the Klamath Film Festival. That's the other project I've been working on too. It's just kind of creating another stage and another puppet.
Awesome. Well, let's get to our guest. I have, unless there's anything that Chuck or Cassidy that you wanted to mention. No? Okay. So a couple of things. There's Terrence's very small bio on screen. But just to get a sense of this gentleman, he has worked with damn near everyone in the industry at some point or another, it seems like. He has been in films like Secret Life of Walter Mitty, the Farrelly Brothers film Stuck on You. He's worked with folks like Harrison Ford and Meryl Streep and John Cusack and Ben Stiller, and he's been on television shows like Criminal Minds and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I mean, just on and on and on. In fact, I think I have just even a fraction of his IMDb right here. I couldn't fit all of it on screen, but just to give you a sense of just a handful of some of the things that this guy has worked on. This is definitely an individual that you would refer to as a working actor, someone whose IMDb is a mile long. And we can get into the phrase that I'm sure he hears quite often, if not on a daily basis. Hey, aren't you that guy who was in that thing? Because Terrence, I know that your career, you're not necessarily hitting like you're not like a A-lister on Jimmy Kimmel each week with the new film coming out, but you're in a little bit of everything, and people are always like, hey, that's the guy, or aren't you that? And then you have to stop and think, okay, out of the 500 things I've been in, what is that one thing that they're thinking of that I've been in, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing how many times I have to do that. And but before I go on, I just wanted to tell you, Kurt, you're hired. We can use that introduction for anything that I ever go on. Whenever I walk into the room, I'll just bring you in my pocket. How about that?
Right.
Yeah.
So I met Terrence a couple of weeks ago. I spent about a week up in Portland at the Portland Film Festival. And I met Terrence and his wife, Sonia, who were doing a screening of their new documentary called Hipley. And Hipley is about it's a dance school in Chicago that combines ballet with hip hop. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually a new dance that was put together by a gentleman who worked with the Harlem, oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on the name, but he's been around, let's put it that way. For 30 years, he's been a choreographer and a dance teacher, and he just melded them together. So you'll see, ballet dancers coming out doing the ballet poses on their toes, and then all of a sudden they'll just start doing some funky, hip hop dances still on their toes, and they're just killing it. They're blowing up all over the world.
And Terrence and Sonia won the, was it the Rising Black Voices Award at PFF?
Yes, we did. We won that, and it's an interesting title, but I'm actually pretty proud of that because we are rising, and we do have a unique point of view that we would like to get out there and share with the world because it's important. And yeah, we won that. So woohoo for us.
So it's interesting too, because in addition to the regular rotation that you have of TV commercials and TV shows and films that you're appearing in, when you're not doing that, you're still staying active in the industry, working with your wife on side independent productions as well. So how has all that come about?
Well, it's we've been doing it for about 5 years together. We started our production company 5 or so years ago. And since then, we've done a ton of short films. We've won many awards. We had one project, which was an Egyptian project called Egyptit, which is the name of a female pharaoh. It's based on a true story of an actual female pharaoh, the second one in history, who took Egypt into its first golden age. She ruled for over 20 years, and there wasn't one war fought during those 20 years, which is pretty amazing during that time period. That film has won, best drama, best cinematography, best director, best actor, best actress, best supporting actor, supporting actor. It won pretty much every award that you can imagine. And it was based on an actual feature length script that was written by Gore Vidal, the late Gore Vidal. We happened to run it, my wife happened to run across that script, and we had to figure out what's the best way to, get this out to the masses. So we basically rewrote it and condensed it down into a short script to kind of put it out there. And so far, the reaction has been absolutely tremendous. And we have other things in the works. We have the project that you were just talking about, #Hipley. It's been so successful that we're actually looking to make a reality show out of that, because the stories that these girls have, it's not just them dancing and blowing up all over the world. But living in inner city Chicago and going through what they have to go through just to be able to arrive at that studio for the 2 or 3 or 4 hours to learn what they have to learn, sometimes it's pretty devastating. Sometimes it's, the documentary itself was a bit of a tearjerker because, they go through stuff and you see them on stage and they're killing it, but off stage, it's almost like a true story of Pagliacci. They're killing it on stage and they're just trying to survive off stage. So we're going to turn that into a reality show. We're actually going to be shooting part of it in Chicago in December. And then we're going to do a little bit more in New York as well. So, we get our way around. We stay busy.
Cool. Well, Terrence was one of many people that I met at the film festival, but just had such a blast hanging out with this guy and Sonia that I asked him, hey, would you mind coming on? And he was gracious enough to join us for this month's meeting. So we'll delve into a little bit more of your background and how you got into that. But first, I want to show the short little comedy reel of some of your work so we can get kind of a sense of just a handful of the things that you've worked on.
Sure. Am I the
There's
only
no
one?
sound.
Yeah, I was wondering, I'm the only one not hearing
There's no
anything?
sound.
I was going to mention, Kurt, if you can hear us, we're not getting audio.
We're numb. I played like shit.
I disagree. And that eulogy. Oh, there it is. Would you mind restarting that, Kurt,
Awesome.
just for the sake of showing it all? Hey, I got some detergent. Okay, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. There we go. We had a little fling, which ended after one date. Man, I just love that name. Sunny. Oh, Sunny. Thank you for the time. You really have talent, bro. That music was incredible.
Oh, I didn't write that. That's Durant's Sonata in D major.
You played it great.
Ah, my fingers were numb. I played like shit.
I disagree. And that eulogy. I don't think I ever heard a eulogy where the word turd was mentioned. Hey, I got some detergent samples in my bag. They're addressed to residents. Interested? There you are. I also have a coupon for some free panties.
God, I did it again.
I heard you devastated Ted with a curse word in front of the Asian acquisitions team.
I heard he cried.
You know who looks good in a beard? Dumbledore, not you. Okay.
It's just moving in together too?
Yes, we are. Dinner Cortez still giving you trouble, huh?
Need to handle this.
All right. With you.
I meant I need to handle this.
Come on, man, you said it yourself. Whenever there's a problem, I know what to do.
This is complicated, Fred.
Oh, it's complicated? So you think it's too hard for me to understand?
No. That's not what I meant.
I guess things have changed. Well, I promise you guys, it's better in when there's great sound.
Sorry about that. I'm still trying to figure out how to get sound from video to come across on Zoom. It's a multi-software process to have all of that done proper. But I mean, those are just a handful of examples of many different things that you've been involved with. But so Terrence and his wife did a seminar that I participated in, and it was maybe about 45 minutes long. And for about 43 of those 45 minutes, I was sitting there frantically scrolling through my IMDb on my phone, listening, but still going, I swear I know this guy. Why can't I think of what he's from? Because I'm sure I've seen it. And I was thinking of like a TV commercial where you hold a dog. And then I realized, oh, well, then I also know him from Walter Mitty, and I know him from this, I know him from that. And I remember I came up to you afterwards and said something to the effect of, I'm sure you hear this all the time, but I swear I know you from something and I just cannot place what it is. And I'm sorry, because I'm sure you hear that constantly.
You know, it's I'm used to it. It's no big deal. I've done almost 100 national commercials and several international commercials. And so I actually get people coming up to me, in various parts of the world wanting to know where they've seen me or how they know me. And it's usually pretty funny. In fact, one time I did this commercial, I don't know, it must have been like 15 years ago. And as I was doing it, the director, very, very talented guy. I mean, he was a visionary in what he was doing comedically. He was a visionary. And so he had me do all these things. He goes, Terence, I want you to do this and I want you to do that. And I'm, being an actor, one of the things that you have to be willing to do is just go for it. If you trust the director and trust the people working with you, go for it all the way. And so I did that. But in my mind at the time, I'm thinking, this guy is freaking nuts. I can't believe this. This will never, ever, never be seen by anybody. And if it does get seen, who knows what the reaction is going to be. And so I just had fun. Went for it and I had fun, even though I thought it was crazy. Well, anyway, that one commercial ended up being so popular that it got its own website made by someone that had nothing to do with the production. And then I eventually looked up on Google, were there any other websites? And at one point, there were like 90 websites dedicated to that commercial. And it ended up getting made into a Japanese anime commercial where they basically used our voices and drew animated Japanese characters to go along with the voices that we had in that commercial. So I was like, wow, that's great. That's really something. It really was really good. And, off of that commercial, I've since done so many others where the director would walk up to me and he goes, you know what? When I was going to film school, I saw that Nutri-Grain commercial that you did. It was so funny. I can't believe I'm getting a chance to cast you in my commercial right now. Which was hilarious. And then one time I was, when I did the movie with Ben Stiller, Patton Oswalt, who I'm sure you've all either heard of or
One of my all-time favorite comics. Yeah.
yeah, he's a really nice guy. I was talking to Ben Stiller, who was the director of the movie, and we were going over something about costuming or colors or something. And Patton walked in the room and he goes, Ben, are you kidding me? Do you know who this is? And he starts marking out over this Nutri-Grain commercial that I had done a million years ago. And Ben, being the smart filmmaker that he is, actually incorporated part of what Patton told him about that commercial for me to do in one of my scenes in the movie, which was really, really cool. Done a lot of commercials, met a lot of great people. I've been a very, 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 very fortunate guy. I consider myself unbelievably fortunate. I'm sorry?
Get out of here. You leave him alone.
Oh.
Sorry. Sorry, my dog was attacking.
Good
Good.
boy.
Does
Good boy.
does the dog have a question for Terence?
I
He's
think he
just being
does.
fishy.
My
Sorry.
first big movie, I did. I went from being nowhere in terms of acting, like nobody wanted to have anything to do with me as an actor, theatrically, to taking a class, meeting a friend of mine who wrote a movie and he made me the star of it, to 6 months later, getting a call on my answering machine from the Fairley brothers, saying, hi, this is Peter Fairley. I just saw this short film you did. I need to talk to you right now. I just finished writing this movie with my brother. And I can't think of anyone in the world that would be better for this particular role than you. I've already got Matt Damon locked in. At that time, he thought he did, but he didn't really. He felt that he had Warren Beatty locked in. He was talking to Meryl Streep and a few other people. And so I was working part-time at FedEx at the time. And so I said, yes, I will read your script.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, I got a little bit of extra time on my hands right this second without a hesitant. So I read the script. It was incredible. I ended up going to his office, meeting him and his brother and and their producers. And they, it's one of those things where you, as a director, if there's any directors out there, you have a story or you have a vision in your mind, and you see someone and they're like the person that you've been thinking about or imagining. I was that for them. And so they were ready to offer me the part. But they did not do it without playing a joke on me. So they played their joke and I apparently, passed the test. And so they gave me the part. There was no audition required. So in a couple of weeks after that, I was sitting on Miami Beach shooting an A-list movie with Matt Damon, Greg Kinnear, Cher, Gabriel Byrne, and Meryl Streep. And so, it was really kind of surrealistic for me. I knew that I was going to do a lot of things in my career. I'm not done yet, but I knew that there was going to be some big things happening. I couldn't tell you exactly what. So it wasn't a complete surprise, but at the same time, it was a complete shock that it was happening the way that it was happening. Who goes from nothing to doing an A-list movie with Meryl Streep, just like that? Well, apparently me. So when I arrived, one of my favorite stories to tell of anybody in the world, because there's a lesson there that I think everybody, not just in the business, but in life should get if they don't already get it. It was a night shoot. I arrived on set, flew from, I was living in North Hollywood, California at the time, flew to Miami, went to Miami Beach. That particular scene that we were shooting started at 11 p.m. But the Fairley brothers, being the Fairley brothers, wanted to make sure everyone was comfortable. So they had, the finest of food, and they had the Starbucks truck out there, and they were passing around Cuban cigars if you wanted a Cuban cigar, and they had a steak and lobster for snacks. And I was like, wow, this is really, really something. This is fantastic. I can't wait to actually start. And they go, good, because yours is the scene we're going to shoot right now. So I specifically went from the airport to set to makeup to a little bit of food and to that scene. So my scene was me and Eva Mendes, who, a little bit of a trivia, Eva and I were in the same acting class at that time, and she was completely blowing up. As a model, as an actress. She ended up marrying Ryan Gosling, and they have a couple of kids now. Really nice woman. But anyway, I go back to my story. It was me and Eva Mendes was sitting next to me, and then there's Matt Damon, and then there's Greg Kinnear. I pride myself on not being starstruck. So when I meet someone, it could be, a regular Joe on the street, or it could be, the most famous person in the world. I think that we at some point are the same people on some level. And so I wasn't starstruck, so I just went right into it. I did the first scene, and Peter Farrelly, who was directing, he said, okay, Terence, so that was good, but it's a little bit more like TV. This is a film. We just kind of, it's like relax into it. It's kind of like take it a little bit slower, and, let's just kind of ease into this particular thing. So I was like, okay, great. Did the scene again. Terence, you're getting there, but it's not quite there yet. So 28 takes later, 28 takes later, he was satisfied. And I was like, okay, great. And because it was so late at that time, because again, we had gone for 28 takes, that was it. Like we wrapped for the day. And I get up, and this was my first big movie. I'm working with these A-list stars. It's my big chance to do something. And I'm taking 30 takes just to do one stupid scene. So I get up and I start walking. I'm walking, killing myself in my head and trying to just gather my wits and getting ready to be fired. I get about 10, 15 feet away from the set, and this gentleman walks up to me, and he puts his hand around my shoulder, and he says, Terence, don't worry about that. You did great. He does the same thing to me. You'll be fine. And that was Matt Damon. And so he did not have to do that. He was the main star of the movie along with Greg Kinnear, but he did. He wanted me to be the best that I could be, and he knew that I did have some potential in being able to, be an asset for the movie. And so I was like, oh, wow, that's great. So we became really, really good friends at that point. And I guess word kind of got around that this was my first big movie. And so I found these big A-list stars kind of trying to take me under their wing and giving me a little advice here and there. And, Matt and Greg started to play some pranks on me, just kind of like lighten things up a little bit. And Meryl Streep was unbelievable. I learned almost more from her offset, like in between takes, than I did in many of my acting classes. She's an unbelievable person. So, by the end of the movie, I was like, oh my God, I am the shit. This is fantastic, because they would also pump me up when I did a really good job. Like one time I did a scene and it took us because Peter wants to be everything as good as it can be, it took us like 10 takes, which is fast for him. And Peter was happy. I walk over to my trailer, which is like, I don't know, maybe about a block or so away. And as I'm getting close to my trailer, this guy comes running, literally running up behind me. Terence, oh my God, that was so good, what you did in that scene. And that was Greg Kinnear. So, these guys were not just into themselves. They were into, making a good movie and validating you if you did a good job and trying to bring the best out of you, which I grew up with the idea of that's the way it should be. Now, the only thing that happened that I have to which was my main lesson is by the time I finished the movie, my head was so big, like, it was an A-list movie. They were treating me like I was a king and I didn't have to do anything and everything was like, I was royalty. So I wrapped the movie, came back to North Hollywood. After about 2 weeks in North Hollywood, I'm like, why is everybody around here such a freaking asshole? And then another couple of weeks went by and I realized, wait a minute, they're not the asshole. I'm the asshole. I bought into the fame and the fortune drug because it was a drug. And I was going through withdrawal symptoms off of that drug, coming back to reality. So long story short, I realized, this fame and fortune thing, it's nice, but it's not like, it's also got it's a double-edged sword. And if you buy into you're so great and all this other stuff, as opposed to just being yourself and being the best, doing the best that you can, it can really mess you up. I'm glad that happened earlier in my career because I will never let that happen again. And I know not to ever buy into the BS.
Well, I think I was living in North Hollywood when Stuck on You was being made. So I must have been one of those assholes then that you probably passed.
You're the
by.
one.
Yes, exactly.
That's where I remember you. No, I'm joking.
I was living on Auckland, just over by the Circus Liquor. So.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well,
it was fun. I've since then I've done a million different things and, I consider myself very fortunate and I try not to be an a-hole to most people because you do meet the same people on the way down that you do on the way up. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I got some questions from one of our members who is part of the film production that's happening in town right now, so he couldn't be here, but he did send some questions. But also anyone on the call here on Zoom or anyone here in house that has a question for Terence here? Yeah, Chuck, go ahead.
Well, I didn't intend to start here. So Terence, I want to start off with a compliment because I've got a couple of thoughtless questions, kind of characteristic of me, I guess, but I'm really impressed with your presentation and especially with the way you talk about that Hippley production. That's pretty amazing. And I wish you the best of luck with that.
Thank you.
But here come the thoughtless questions. First, I watched the Walter Mitty movie recently with my son, and could you remind me what your role was?
Well, you actually saw part of it in that
Okay, yeah,
clip about
I
the
thought
song
I
where I was
might have,
laughing in
yeah.
the elevator. I was basically one of Walter's confidants and friends in the office where he was working at Time Life. I'm at the beginning, the middle, and the end. Let's see. Yeah, I think that my first line is as he's walking away from his sister coming to work, my first line to him is, "Hey, Mitty, we just got bought," because we were being bought out by a big
Oh, yeah.
conglomerate.
I
And
remember.
the hijinks go on from there.
Oh, yeah. Well, the other question is maybe not quite so bad, but that elevator scene kind of made me think of it. It reminded me of Severance. You weren't in that series, were you? Or
No, I was not in Severance, but it's a good show. I mean,
Oh,
great
yeah.
acting in that
It,
show.
it has a similar vibe to it for sure.
okay, yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, that series was mind bending for me, and I suspect others. And my son and wife and our family are great fans of that. So there must be a whole nother side to Ben Stiller that maybe you can give some insight into. There must be something kind of different going on in that man's mind, and maybe you can explain it for me. Thank you.
Sure. Before I do that, can you tell me what part of Ben's mind that you do know right now?
Not much. It's mostly just like, yeah, what is going on there? I mean, that Severance thing, especially with Walter Mitty to some extent, but man, it's just like that Severance thing is so thought provoking and makes you think about reality in too many different ways, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. Well, it's interesting. Ben he's gotten older. He's actually, I kind of think of it similar to myself. Like when I was younger, I mainly did comedy, and I was a funny looking guy, and I was a funny acting guy, and what can I say? I could walk into a room, and people would just kind of lighten up. Ben has done so many comedies that he's been known for comedy,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. I mean, his movies have made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe even close to $1 billion comedically. But as a person, Ben is he can be very serious. He's not a jokester kind of a guy. He doesn't walk into the room and kind of lighten it up just because he's walked in there. He can be funny, but that is definitely not his main thing. And as he's gotten older, that's really, he's kind of gone into the direction of serious, thought-provoking things.
Greenberg is a great example of that. Like a really
yeah.
dark film, not funny at all, very, very dramatic, plays a very compelling character, but a very dark character. But keep in mind too, Ben comes from Hollywood royalty too. Like his parents were both famous actors and were in the industry for decades. I mean, his dad, most people remember him now as being George's father on Seinfeld, but Jerry Stiller was in a million things for many, many decades. So I mean, Ben is one of those people that grew up in the industry, surrounded by it from day one. And so has a very different perspective of us from the outside coming in. Or Terrence, I think you're from Michigan originally, right? So
Yeah, I'm originally from Detroit.
yeah, so Terrence moving from Michigan to LA to pursue acting, me coming from Oregon, moving to LA to be behind the scenes. It's different for the majority of us who come to LA thinking if I just move there, then ... famous. And somehow in Terrence's case, that ... actually happens. For most, it doesn't. As opposed to the small minority that are people who actually are local to LA and have been in the industry from day one because they're legacies. It's a multi-generational thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Ben is actually he's a very smart guy. Like he's been watching in every movie he's done. He's been watching the directors. He worked with Spielberg when he was younger. He was in a movie that Spielberg directed, and he watched what Spielberg would do. He watched how he directed, and so anybody who really wants to be the best that they can, I think, has to be a sponge. And he was definitely a sponge, and he would do things that he would learn in some of his previous movies on set. We use him as a director on set with us. Like, for example, the first scene was it was MOS, like no talking whatsoever. And so, and also it was our first day on set. And so everybody was kind of, just trying to get acclimated to our roles and the whole vibe of the movie. One thing he did, which many directors still do, was he invited us all to New York the week before we actually started shooting. not just to meet each other, but also to meet each other. And he gave us a list of films. He rented out a movie theater for a week and he had us watch certain films that were in the vibe of what he wanted to deliver with this film, which was really, really nice. And it did kind of get us all on the same page, you know, in terms of the vibe of this movie. One of them was Being There with Peter Sellers.
Right.
Remember that one the most, which
And
was
I assume that that also included the original Walter Mitty film with Danny Kaye as well.
no, it did not.
Really?
Believe it or not, no, he wanted his own thing. And so he could have, and he didn't say, don't look at that, but in terms of the ones he chose specific ones that was going on a certain vibe that he wanted to give. And then not only that, when we did shoot the first scene and it was MOS, he wanted us all to walk because we had to walk out of the elevator and he wanted us to walk in a certain rhythm that was like almost as though we were not dancing, but we had a certain rhythm that was going on in the way that we moved our body. And so he played music. He played a certain song on set while we were filming because we were not talking. And we all kind of, our bodies naturally kind of went into the rhythm of that song. And it really turned out great. I mean, music was a very, very big thing for him as a director. And that's just an example of one thing that he had learned as he went along the way in his own acting career.
I'm really surprised. Well, you know, that the fun little side twist, at least for me with that is, so my father, his big hobby before he passed away was he was taking old Life magazines and framing all of the covers and some of the interesting ads and taking those to different trade shows and selling them as nicely framed, like 1930s, 40s, 50s Life magazine covers, and then putting the date on them. So I have on my wall at my house a fully framed Secret Life of Walter Mitty starring Danny Kaye from Life magazine. That I walk by every day when I first come through the door that my dad made. So I'm kind of stunned that he didn't have you watch the original, but you know, on that same note, if you are doing something that is a quote unquote remake, maybe you do want to keep people kind of in the dark and just have your own original thing, not feel like you have to measure up to the original in a certain way.
Yeah, you know, each director has their own way, their own style of, you know, how they want to handle the actors and, you know, the film that they're doing. And that was just one of his things. You know, another thing that he insisted on was he does not like actors to watch their takes, you know. There's no absolute, you know, something has to be a certain way and it's always going to have a certain result in terms of filmmaking. Well, that's not true. In terms of handling the actors and going about creating your film. Like one person can do it one way, their way, and another person can do it another way, and they'd get their result. I personally do like to watch takes because I kind of go, oh, I can see what you're saying. I need to whatever. And so he would not let me watch any of my takes. And then finally, at one point in the middle of the movie, he goes, okay, Terence, come here. I want you to watch this take. And I'm like, oh, yes, now I get it, you know. But he's a stickler for perfection. 6 weeks, was it 6 weeks? No, it was 3 weeks into production. He fired the cinematographer. And that's a big deal on a A-list set because you got to realize the cinematographers for a movie like that is making a lot of money. And so to get to the point where you're going, okay, this is not working out, goodbye, you still got to pay the guy money. But he had a certain vision and he wanted it a certain way, and that was that. And so he could go anywhere from, he's a very passionate guy, so he could get upset from time to time if he needed to get the result that he needed. Not that he yelled at me, he never yelled at me. He was actually quite nice to me. But you know, I've seen him yell at someone when they were messing up over and over and over again. And you have to respect someone who, you know, if somebody's messing up over and over and over and they're getting paid money, no, that's not right. You got to let them know that's not okay. We need to get this thing done. So I respected that. Respected Ben. He treated the actors very nicely. Yeah, I don't know what brought me on to that, but that's what I had to say about that.
Well,
Other than that, he's a total asshole.
Does that mean he lives in North Hollywood?
Yes, he's one of them.
Nina, Andrew, or Cassidy, do you have a question for Terrence here?
I have a question. You've done a variety of roles, Terrence, so many different things. I'm just curious, of all the roles that you've kind of played, what was like your favorite role that you've got to play? That's probably a tough question.
Yeah, I've never been asked that question, that exact question. In terms of film, I would have to say my favorite one, the one that I had the most fun in, was the one with the Farrelly brothers. It was just, at the time, it was so cool. And Peter Farrelly was right. I was the guy to play that. It was basically me. I do play a guy who's like, he's narcoleptic, and so I could be talking to you, and in the middle of the sentence, I would just fall asleep, and I would come back. So that does not happen with me. But other than that, it was like, it really was me at the time. And of course, I did love the role in Walter Mitty as well. I love most roles that I've played, honestly.
That
Cool.
I have heard a lot that Fairly Films, they don't do a lot of films, of course, but the ones that they do, it's like a big giant family reunion, and it's just like a big giant family on set. That's the environment that they try to cultivate with every single production they do.
Yeah, that's the PG rated version. They have a blooper reel for every movie that they make, and
Yep.
some of them would not be PG rated. Just to give you an idea of Peter's sense of humor, when they have this thing where when they do a big comedy, they like to cast dramatic actors in comedic situations. And so he wanted Matt Damon, who had never done a feature comedy before that I'm aware of. And so he started talking to Matt and his agent, and he got Matt to invite him over for, dinner at his house in New York, right? It may have been in Boston. But anyway, he invited him over to his house, and he's talking to him about the movie. And at some point, Peter goes, "Oh, you know what? Can I use your restroom?" He gets up and he goes to the restroom, and he's there for like 15 minutes. And Matt is like, he goes and he knocks on the door. "Are you okay, Peter?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, I'm good. I'll be out in a second." He walks out and he's taken off his clothes, and he's got a towel around his waist, and he's shampooing his hair. And so his hair is full of shampoo. And he goes, "I'm just making myself comfortable. You tell me to make myself comfortable." So I decided to just do that. So let's continue with this conversation. Can I have a drink as well? So he sits down on the couch in his towel, and the shampoo still in his hair. And he finishes his pitch meeting to Matt Damon right there in that towel. So that's the type of sense of humor you kind of have to get used to with these guys.
Cassie,
But it's a family.
Follow up on that.
Well, Terrence, thanks again so much for being here. Loved your intro and everything, and I'm really excited to watch Hipley. That seems great. #Hipley. But I'm just curious about kind of your transition or your career from being an actor in all these movies and then becoming a filmmaker and finding stories like that, and kind of how that translates, especially into being a documentary filmmaker, because that's really interesting having an acting background and kind of how that all came into play.
Well, thank you. Like I said, it's been a work in progress. Thankfully, I'm doing it with my wife, who's a very incredibly persistent person. She saw me doing all these movies and these TV shows and these commercials, and her career as a career coach. And so some of my friends would actually go to her, directors or writers or whatever, would go to her and explain their woes of the industry. And she would give them certain things to do to help get their careers back on track. At one point, she said to me, "You know what? I've been thinking about all these things that, these filmmakers have been saying to me. It's ridiculous. It's BS. I bet I could make a film." And so she went about deciding to make a film herself, directing one. And so she came up with a short that she wrote with a friend of hers, and she's very good at raising money. And so she went to Las Vegas. She went to Las Vegas and met some friends of ours and hers mainly, who happened to be from another country. And she told them about the story because the story takes place in Lebanon. And she got them to give her a pile of cash. And next thing I know, she's dragging me along to Beirut. And we're shooting this short film. And we did it. And she took a long time to edit it because she didn't know, she had no clue what she was doing. But she did eventually edit it. And it turned out not too horribly. And then she said, I want to do another one. And she got some more money and she made another one. And, you know, because she's my wife and I love her and I wanted her to do well, I would use whatever I had learned to kind of give her advice here and there as a producer to, you know, make it look pretty good. Eventually, she did become really, really good. And we started winning awards and she started winning awards. And she's one of those people that she's got an infectious personality where she can walk into a room filled with people. There could be 50 people in the room. And when she walks in, within 10 minutes, people just start gravitating towards her, wanting to know what else she has to say. So as we decided to make every movie become better than the last one, people will continue to be willing to invest in her. And so it went from me kind of trying to help her go the right direction to me going along on the ride and me having to learn myself. And so I'm actually learning a lot of things from her as well now. But it takes two. Nobody does this alone. It takes two or more people. And I actually think, you know, whether it's a director and a cinematographer or a director and a writer or you know, two friends or whatever, someone who's trying to do it on their own, it's going to be so hard. Find somebody that you get along with that's wants to go in the same direction. And, you know, it's kind of like you can be a really powerful team. And so I think that's a real secret to me kind of making a transition over there. But at the same time, every movie that she puts me in and makes me a star of. So I'm not going to complain too much about that. And I haven't stopped acting in other things. In fact, I recently completed a movie that earlier this year went to the Venice International Film Festival. It stars Bob Odenkirk and Danny Houston. And I had fun shooting that. Bob Odenkirk, I know I sound like a broken record, but most of the people that I've worked with are just really good people, really nice people. Bob Odenkirk's a nice guy. And that movie was just bought by IFC Films, I think it is, and it's going to be on AMC Plus next year. But they're going to have a theatrical release first, and then they're going to put it on AMC Plus, and you can't complain too much about that, huh?
Yeah. You know, I will say when I first met Terence, you know, as soon as they finished their panel discussion, within 5 minutes, his wife was handing out drinks to everyone in the in the VIP lounge. Here, have some alcohol, you have a drink. Oh, you don't have a drink yet, here, you know, and just kind of starting the conversation. So I agree heartily with what he said there about Sonia kind of taking over a room as soon as she comes in.
Y'all sound
You know,
like
you kind of have to, it's about attention because there's so many people, even in just a room like that. But imagine in Hollywood, and this is really important to know for a filmmaker. And I don't want to sound like I know this and you don't, because you may already know this, but it's important to get attention. You know, you can have the greatest film in the world. It could be groundbreaking. It could have the incredible acting. But if nobody's watching it or nobody's giving it attention or giving you attention, then you don't exist in the larger scheme of things. And so being able to get attention is one of the biggest things that a filmmaker needs to do. In fact, one of our mentors he acquires films for Sony Pictures Classics. His title is Executive Vice President for Acquisitions and Production for Sony Pictures Classics. So all he does 7 days a week, 365 days a year is look at movies, independent movies mostly, and decide which ones they're going to buy. And he says, look, if we get established with a director such as Alejandro Inarritu, who does all his movies with Sony Pictures Classics, and oh my God, who's I can't believe I'm blanking on this guy. He's the Mexican director who he has a show on on, I think it's Netflix right
Oh,
now.
Guillermo del Toro?
Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro does a lot of movies with Sony Pictures Classics as well. He goes, look, we like to develop relationships with directors that we know are really, really talented and that have done well in movies for us before. So we will get involved not after the movie is made. We will get involved in the script process. We will actually, they will let us know what script they're looking at doing. Sometimes they may ask for advice on which way they should go in certain directions regarding the film. They'll continue consulting with them after the script, after the movie is actually done, post-production. They'll work with them all the way through, and then, of course, continue on through to it going to certain festivals, because that's what gets attention. And he says, listen, start getting attention the moment you decide to do a project. If you have a script, get attention about the fact that you're doing that script. Even if you're not like a big famous A-lister, get attention in any way that you can. Announce it on social media. Announce it amongst other filmmakers. Get the buzz started as fast as you can and keep it going strategically throughout the actual release. And then after the release, get more buzz. So that's why attention is such an important thing, and why it's good to have a wife that gets attention.
Well, Andrew, I know you haven't had a chance to chime in yet. Did you have a question for Terrence as well?
Yeah, I mean, first I want to say, Terrence, thank you so much for voicing that advice, because as a publicist, I absolutely agree. It's incredibly important through every phase of a production, whether you're at the early stages of having a script signed off by the WGA and you're going through in development and financing, to have things like exclusives go out through outlets, and social media is always good to spread awareness, and getting articles published wherever you can is really critical, because it's, again, getting you that attention. But I wanted to say, I actually am really looking forward to Worlds Apart, and congratulations on that being acquired by IFC and set for distribution on AMC Plus. That's amazing.
Thank
And
you.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm a big fan of Bob and Danny Houston too. I mean, his whole family is incredible, being the son of John Houston and brother of Angelica Houston. He comes from royalty as well.
Oh, big time. And yeah, again, not assholes.
Good to hear.
Yeah,
Screw
not
all
at
those
all.
people in North Hollywood.
Yeah, those damn North Hollywooders.
Well, you kind of touched on it a little bit. I was going to ask you what your thoughts are on the value of making movies in the independent and genre and short film space, and what your thoughts are on that, and how it can be good for filmmakers and actors and anybody involved. But then I wanted to follow up really quickly and ask you two things. One, what was your special thanks on Werewolves Within for? And two, do you have any memories or any fun stories from being in Leprechaun Back to the Hood?
Oh my God.
I had to go for a couple of deep cuts. I mean,
A friend with weed is a friend indeed, right?
I'm an old video store guy. I went down that path before writing articles and editorials, and of course, just like Kurt's saying, you're one of that guys. So I had to ask.
Okay. What was the first movie you talked about that you wanted to know?
I wanted to ask you what your special thanks on Werewolves Within was,
yes,
and then
yes.
hear your thoughts on indie films, genre, and shorts.
Okay. All right, I kind of have to go into a very short story here. One of my mantras that I tried to, like I said, ever since I did that movie with Meryl Streep and I came back being the asshole, one of the mantras that I try to keep as an actor or just as a person is don't be an asshole. Just, people are people, and try to treat everyone as great as you think they could be. So I did this commercial one time, and I walk on the set, and there's this guy sitting there, and he's the hero of the commercial. And I say, hey, how you doing? My name is Terrence, blah, 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 blah. So you're going to play blah, blah. And he goes, yeah, thanks. And I said, well, you know what? Congratulations on getting this job. I think you're going to do great. We kind of hit it off. He actually is a nice guy. We really, really hit it off. And at the end of the commercial, as we wrap, he says to me, hey, Terrence, by the way, I'm also a director. I mainly direct on the East Coast though. So if you're ever on the East Coast, or if I'm back on the West Coast shooting something, let's see if we can work together. And I thought, well, that's really cool of you. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Literally 6 months later, he sends me an email about a project that he was shooting. It was not Werewolves in Werewolves Within. This was even before that. And he asked if I'd be willing to, play a part in this project he was shooting. And I was like, sure. So I shot it. We got along even better. Since that time, I think he's done like 6 commercials with me as the director and 3 or 4 TV shows. And every time someone comes to him, another director or producer, and says, hey, listen, we're looking for someone that can play blah, one of the first words out of his mouth, because he lives on the East Coast and he doesn't work with me on the West Coast unless he has something here, he'll actually recommend it to me to other directors. I shot a pilot a couple of years ago from just off of a recommendation from him. Fast forward to him, he does Werewolves Within. And because he's a total asshole, he doesn't cast me in it. I'm joking.
Are you talking about Josh?
Josh Rubin, yes.
Yeah, we're interviewing him soon. I am gonna have to pass that on. Tell him he owes you one.
Yes, tell Josh.
Oh wow.
And screw you, buddy. No, but we're still friends.
That's good to hear.
He actually had no choice in the casting of that movie because it was his first, like the project was brought to him with the cast already attached. And so, which it was a great cast. So anyway, he did it and he goes, Terrence, look, I really need a favor from you. Would you be willing to watch the what we're looking to be, the locked in version of this show? And so I looked at it, I said what worked, what I thought didn't work. And from that point of view, I helped him out and gave him a little bit of, like that. And so I got a special thanks. And you know what? I forgot that I had even done that. I was looking at my IMDb the other day and I was like, special thanks for Werewolves Within? I knew I wasn't in that movie. So I had to actually call him up and say, hey, Josh, why are you thanking me? And he goes, oh yeah. And he reminded me. But Josh, he was an asshole. But he's one of the nicest guys you will ever meet in your freaking life. He's like a total mensch.
Yeah, he's great.
And he's incredibly talented. He started directing when he was 14. He ended up being the main director for those College Humor skits that were on the, on YouTube and for everywhere else. So I hope to work with Josh again. Last time I worked with him was literally last December.
That's cool. That's very cool.
So you guys are going to interview him, huh?
Yeah, we have a documentary coming up that we're talking about the movies and scenes that scared us all when we were in our formative years. Like, for example, if you go downstairs and all of a sudden The Exorcist is on and you run behind the couch, moments like that. And because of his history as a genre filmmaker and horror fan, he has a lot to contribute, and we're really excited to get him on camera. And that's going to be happening soon.
Yeah, you're really lucky. He's going to be, I predict, he's a great director. He did this movie recently. He's done a couple since, but he did a movie where he plays a serial killer that is just one of the freakiest things you will ever want to see, not want to see. I don't know, but I predict he's going to end up being an icon in that area as well. So yeah, tell him I said, you know what? Still pissed off he didn't put me in Werewolves Within.
We'll see if he can get you in Werewolves Within 2.
Right.
Okay.
Hey, isn't that Werewolves 2 or Werewolves Within 2 Back to the Hood?
Oh, yes.
That's the crossover we need.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Leprechaun 6, Back to the Hood.
Yeah. If you have a story, a cult classic.
That title alone. Okay. What do you want to know? I mean, I play. I was in the universe of Leprechaun, and I had a wife who had the only copy of the combination to the safe with all our money and jewels in it, and she died, and I needed to find out from her what the combination was. And so I went to a psychic, and I didn't give a damn about speaking to my wife who had died. I just wanted to know where's the damn combo to the safe. So it was kind of a bit of a comedic type of a scene that I had there. I ended up, the interesting thing about this movie is you hear the title Leprechaun 6, Back to the Hood. So I had not seen Leprechaun 5 in the hood,
Right.
much less back to the hood. But it was an interesting shoot. Warwick Davis, I believe the Leprechaun's name was, very famous, guy. He's one of the short people, one of the little people that he actually had. He was a recurring character in the Harry Potter movies as
Yep.
well.
And Willow and
Hello?
Star
Star Wars.
Wars
Yeah,
and
he's
Yeah.
he's the bomb. I mean, he's a really good actor. Who started making money making Leprechaun movies, and he just did them. I think after 6, that was enough.
right.
He was a great guy. The guy that actually played the hero of that movie, the star of that movie, he's still a very, very working actor. His name is Laz Alonso, Cuban guy. He ended up being one of the main stars of Avatar. I'm not sure if he's going to be in the upcoming Avatar as well. And then another guy who's also from Detroit. And I'm going to shoot myself because I can't remember his name. But did you guys see that movie that came out a few years ago about this killer shark? They're making a new Meg.
The Meg. Yeah, that's
The
what I was
Meg.
thinking of.
The funny
Yes.
black guy in that movie was also one of the funny guys in Leprechaun 6. And he's going to be coming back in the sequel. They just finished shooting it in England. So a lot of people have gone on to do great things. I mean, the female lead of that movie has also gone on to be, a tremendous actor in TV as well. So you do these movies, you do these little things that you have no idea where it's going to go, who's going to see it. You just want to work and you want to do your best job, and you meet people, and you just kind of go on from there. And it's funny that you find some people that have become A-list actors, and people that people just see all the time, and you go way, 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 way back in their work history, and you see stuff like this, and it's just so funny. So my philosophy is, unless you have a good reason why, go ahead and go for it. Unless it just completely sucks, the script sucks, and you can't get along with the people. But I've not had that happen. So yeah, that's that from Leprechaun 6.
Well, the horror genre has long been an introductory pathway, because horror films tend to usually be low budget films. So they bring in those actors that are maybe emerging, but that they can afford. And then years later, it's suddenly, oh yeah, as a fun little trivia question, here's the first film that Jennifer Aniston was in, or Julia Louis-Dreyfus, or you just go down the list of all of these like A-listers now that started being in some crappy horror, slasher B movie back in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. And that's where so many get their start.
Exactly.
In that genre. So
Yeah, just like Kevin Bacon and the very first Friday the 13th, some of
Yep.
these really early shows wind up getting you in the door, I guess. And that's kind of what I was wondering from your thoughts, Terrence, is if you get the opportunity to do anything in the genre world or indie film or anything like that, do you say just go for it?
I say go for it, especially these days, because you don't need a lot of money to make a movie these days. I mean, you can some movies are being made on iPhones these days. And a movie that was filmed on an iPhone won an Academy Award, and I think it was the best documentary or something like that a few years ago. So in terms of equipment, it's great to have the great the Aries and the Panasonics and the Sonys. They do great filming, but just a regular guy with talent, with an idea, with a group of friends, with actors, can actually make a short film or make a film. And there are plenty of very passionate filmmakers, and I think the cream does eventually rise to the top. Word gets around, and people kind of tend to want to work with you, or they hear about you, or something like that. And so it doesn't stop. Every year there's going to be a new crop of people that want to make films, and a certain percentage of them are going to have great ideas and have a great talent or a knack for something. And when you do something good, somebody else that worked with you will maybe mention you to someone else, kind of like what happened with me and Josh, Josh Rubin. I've probably gotten, I don't know, maybe 8 acting jobs since I met him as an actor, where we were both actors on sets, just from that. But indie stuff, it rocks. You know, there's only going to be so many people that are going to be quote unquote allowed or accepted to be able to make the big stuff. But, you know, I think if you put yourself out there and doing a good job in everything that you do, when I was talking earlier about getting attention, things can get hyped up, but part of getting attention is really doing a good job, you know, even if it's not like the big A-list thing or the B-list thing. If you have a vision for a long term, you know, you do a good job as a director, as a cinematographer, as a writer, as a, you know, production designer, as makeup, as an actor, as all these things. If you do a good job, that's part of getting attention, because people are going to want to know who did that. And that's someone looking at you or looking you up on IMDb, or going to IMDb and going, oh my God, I wonder what else they've done, you know,
Like
or
Leprechaun 6, Back to the Hood.
there you go. I did Leprechaun 6, Back to the Hood. Hi, my name is Terence Hines, and I did Leprechaun 6, Back to the Hood.
The confessional PSA. I love it. Well, I mean, Terrence, thank you so much for that insight. I really do appreciate hearing that, because so many people are so passionate in the horror community and the independent film world. And just like you're saying, the cream rises to the top. Sometimes persistence pays off. And a perfect example I can say of that is if anyone here is following the success of the new movie Terrifier 2. It was shot for 250,000, and it's now made over 12 million.
It was
and
actually
expanded to
just
over
submitted for the
1,500
Academy
theaters.
Awards. And
That's
they're,
right.
they're doing it
Latest
kind of
casting.
ironically as a joke, but still was submitted for the Academy Awards.
Amazing. That's just
Well,
amazing.
a good friend of mine, Steve, is one of the head producers of that, and they're just all wonderful people. So it's always something I try to do is work with great people who, just like you're saying, Terrence, aren't the assholes. And I appreciate you giving us your thoughts.
Oh yeah, it's my pleasure. In fact, it's funny you say that. Our mentor, at the guy I was telling you about earlier at Sony Pictures Classics, as we started making projects of our own, we said to him, Dylan, would you do us the favor of telling us what makes a good movie, what goes into a movie that you see that you bring to the president of Sony Picture Classics and say, we got to buy this. And he actually went out of his way to list out, 5 movies that had come out earlier that year that were all made for anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000, that were either nominated or had actually won major awards, such as an Academy Award. So these things can be done. They it's a lot easier to do them now. I think they've always been done, but it's a lot. They're becoming more popular now and more accepted now than they were before. So hearing that about Terrifier 2, oh my God, man! Did you say Terrifier 2 or Terrifier?
Yeah.
That's it. Yep. Terrifier, just like Terrified. And it's become a global sensation. It's the biggest movie of the Halloween season. They can't stop talking about it on The View. Jerry O'Connell keeps telling everyone he took his kids to go see it. It is making film history right now because of its success, especially as an unrated film too, with its national theatrical run being over 1,500 theaters. And I was talking to Steve the other day, telling him if George Romero were still around, he'd tell him that he's just over the moon. It's doing incredible. And, there's potential that there may be films in the future that have that same kind of success. So we're all excited that it's paving the way for so many more filmmakers.
It kind of has the vibe of like Blair Witch Project back in the 90s, a very, very, very low budget film.
Yeah.
That just catches a sensation, comes out at the right place, right time vibe, and just hooks. And for whatever reason, random reason, it's gotten insane buzz, and people are just latching onto it. I think somewhat ironically, in the same way that people like love Troll 2 to ridiculous levels. And there's even been documentary made about Troll 2, about the best worst movie of all time.
Oh my God.
So I think it's kind of following that same sort of crowd that kind of love it for its terribleness in a way too.
Interesting. I love it. I got to see it.
Yes, please do. I think the more success it has, the more it's going to open up for incredible slasher movies and indie productions, and guys like Josh and hopefully all of us in the room here are just going to benefit from that.
Oh yeah, and horror movies are they always will be the cheapest movies to make. You know, you can do them in one room if you wanted to, or you could do it in a house. So the expenses are always going to be low, and they deserve their place. They're never going away. That's one genre that's never. I mean, they have their ups and downs, but they're never going away. And now is definitely a good time for it. That genre.
Horror is one of the original genres. You can go back to the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, back to the silent film era, as
Right.
essentially, one of the first films, or at least one of the first films that's still around, that was story structured, that when they were still kind of defining what a movie is and how to tell story. And that's one of the very first films that kind of put all the elements together. And it's still considered one of the greatest horror films of all time.
Wow. Okay, well, let's make a horror movie.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll give Josh a call and see if he wants to champion whatever we come up with.
That film basically
Sure.
defined German
I
expressionism.
have a horror script you can do.
Okay.
I'm always all for it whenever we can make something happen.
Yeah.
Terrence, I did get texted a couple of questions from Bowen, who's one of our regulars. He's an aspiring young actor, and if nothing else, he is very persistent, because this is he keeps pushing, like, should I move to LA to pursue acting? I'm like, no, don't move to LA to pursue acting. But you are the example that kind of breaks that mold. But he did want me to ask you what advice you would give someone who is at least trying to enter the industry in some way.
Okay. Do you happen to know Bowen, Kurt?
Oh yeah. No, we know Bowen very well. Yeah. It's just
Okay.
I think he's part of the film that's shooting tonight. And that's why he's not here.
Oh, well, congratulations, Bowen. Good for you. One of the things I would say for sure, without knowing anything other than your name, is do what you're doing, which is, work. Being on set is so valuable. You learn so much, especially if it's a good set, like, people are doing things the way that they should be done. But even then, even if not, being on set, being able to get familiar with, doing a role, doing a character, being on camera, that's invaluable. And it can't be understated just how important that is. In terms of having a career, there's so many things to know. Would you say that, because Bowen, what would you say in terms of his experience right now? And
He's early 20s, has a lot of enthusiasm, but not a lot of experience. He has acted in some things and he's done well in them. And he is aspiring to someday be an actor in some capacity. I keep telling him, he just do it as often as possible on a local level, local community theater, any opportunities that come up, just keep doing it until LA starts calling you. You don't have to go to LA and be one of the million faces in a crowd, all with a headshot in your back pocket, pumping gas or serving food, hoping that you just happen to meet that right person. Because you are definitely the exception, not the rule, Terrence, in terms of the type of success of I'll just move to LA and become a famous actor. It's like no, that doesn't happen, except for very rare circumstances. That does not happen.
Well, yeah, there's no such thing as an overnight sensation. I mean, even the overnight sensations have been doing it for 5-10 years sometimes. I would say to Bowen, I agree that you should continue to act in any way possible that you can. If you have does Bowen have a demo reel?
I know he's been working on one.
Okay.
I don't think he has one done yet.
All right. Well, that's one thing, especially if you're working on film. Get yourself a demo reel, and make sure that what you put on your demo reel, it should only be like, max 2 minutes, maybe a minute and a half. Put the good stuff. Don't just put, something that you did that, may not be the best, version of what you can do, because you don't want to give a bad impression. You want to, like a business card, if you're giving out a business card, you want to give one that, looks kind of professional, and people go, okay, they're slightly impressed, even if only for a millisecond. You want to put together a demo reel, 1.5, 2 minutes max, no more, that features you mostly, if you can, because it's great to see other actors, but the idea is you're selling you, not the other actors, and keep working and keep promoting yourself, like we were talking about earlier with Andrew. Getting yourself attention. You don't have to actually be in LA to get attention in LA. You can put yourself in a position where you're one of the go-to guys whenever a project is shot in your area or anywhere in Oregon. You could be one of the go-to people that they would think of. One of the things that I did when I started off in my career was I took this class. This is not like everywhere. Now, all actors are in all the big cities are doing this, but there's this thing called branding. When I started, there was really no such thing called branding. I mean, there were brands of products, but for an actor, branding was like, what is that? So I took this class, and part of the class consisted of going to LAX, where there's this, it's a big airport, and back then there was no 9/11, and so you would find anywhere from 30 to 50 people sitting around waiting for their next plane, at any particular area that you walked in. So in this class, we got a clipboard with a piece of paper, and it had like 45 personality traits written down. So anything from, asshole to priestly to trustworthy to best friend to, jealous to, neurotic, all the possible personality traits you can imagine. And one person would actually just stand in front of this crowd of people, just doing nothing, just standing. And his partner would go along with that clipboard to each person sitting down and say, excuse me, we're taking a class, and we would just like to just take 2 minutes of your time. Look at that person right there and just put a quick check mark right next to everything that you get off of them just by looking at them for like 30 seconds. We did that. At the end of the day, we compiled all of the answers on all the various pieces of paper, and one for one, there were common denominators that were found. So that was very interesting because it told you exactly what you're bringing into every room. It's exactly who you are. Even some people were shocked that people thought that they were an asshole without them saying or doing anything, or thought that they were trustworthy without saying anything. So from that point, you found a way to market yourself. You got attention, but you got it in the right way. When you went to an agent, you told the agent, look, I'm the best friend. I'm the funny uncle. I'm the guy that tells you you can always trust me, but will stab you in the back. And you give that agent exactly what he does and the types of roles to look for to sell you in. And of course, when you went out for those types of roles, because that's who you really are, without saying a word, people tended to get cast in those types of roles that were right for them. And so then you would also market yourself because that was your brand. You were that funny guy or that crazy guy or that stern boss or that floozy or that whatever personality trait you can think of. Everyone, there's people out there, there are those things. And so get attention for who you really are. Try to get those roles of who you are. There are branding classes these days that you can take. I don't know where they are in Oregon, but branding is definitely a thing. It definitely does work. And if you get attention by doing the right thing and doing a good job of doing that right thing, word will start getting around. People will start to go, oh, you want blah, blah, blah? Oh yeah, Bowen's there. People used to think, don't get typecast. You don't want to get typecast. BS, you do want to get typecast in TV. In TV, you specifically want to get typecast because you want to be on that top 5 or 10 list of people out of the 3,000 that casting director can call in for that particular role because they only have 4 days to cast that. It's a little bit different now because, with COVID, they're casting from all over the world for the big projects, which is good for you because you're part of that world. But you want to be on a list of people when they think of that certain type of character. Bowen can do that, or yeah, I saw Bowen in this one thing. I wonder if he could do something like this. You get the idea? Getting attention every way you can, getting yourself known in Oregon and and also when you get yourself a reel, you can start sending that out. You can put it online. You can send it to agents. You can send it to, do yourself a favor and find yourself certain directors or casting directors and start following them on social media and posting things that they might see, and get yourself, because it doesn't matter where the heck you live, you can get a big following on TikTok or on Instagram, etc. And that gets attention, and people start wondering, who in the heck is this guy blowing? And if it's really good stuff, they'll start getting into, watching it, and you'll get fans in LA or in New York or in Chicago or in Miami or, etc., Vancouver, Toronto. It's definitely more of a worldwide thing now, and you have more control now than I did back when I first started out. So start doing that. But I think the main thing you need to concentrate on is, always doing a great job, getting attention. Some people you see on TV or in a movie sometimes, you go, how the heck did they get that job? They're not that good of an actor. I don't know about you, but I say that sometimes. I do. And it is a subjective thing, but part of that is getting attention. They have a certain look, or they have a certain thing, or they are in a certain circle. It's all about attention, man. You can find yourself getting in incredible places when you do that. And without knowing anything about you, that's kind of like off the top of my head, shooting from the hip, what I would say to you. And I wish you good luck.
Typecasting gets thought of as such a bad thing because, maybe the person, they may be feeling like they want to do something else, but being typecast also means you're getting a lot of work.
Yes. And if you are getting a lot of work because you're typecast, eventually you're going to get powerful enough where you can say, well, you know what? I want to go into a different direction, or I want to try something different that people don't expect. And you can have more power to be able to do something like that then, if you're willing to play the long game of what are they willing to see you as? They want to see you as, the young guy who is like kind of goofy, and they're willing to pay you and put you in stuff. If you're willing to do that, great. If they want to see you just as like the guy that's in love with his girlfriend, great. If they want to see you as the crazy guy who's the stalker in a horror movie, okay. Play their game so that you can end up having them play your long game. So that's what I would say.
Maybe Bowen, I'm not sure if Bowen is short enough to play a leprechaun going back to the hood, but maybe that's a possibility for him. Good. Going back to the hood part two. I had one more question for you, and that was there a part of your craft or performance that was particularly interesting or difficult to develop?
Part of my craft, it's still a developing thing, honestly. If you really, really, really want to be good at something, you never stop learning. And so I'm still trying to be a sponge every day. When I go on a set, or when I go to a job or an audition, or if I self-tape an audition. In terms of specific roles, there was one role I did in an Egyptian movie where I was the main villain. And so I had to find those evil parts of where I don't normally go. That would make me be that guy that would kill for power. That required a little bit of, thinking and researching and, finding the back history of this person, because look, I gotta tell you, I gotta put a caveat to everything that I say. There's no exact way to do anything in this business. Sometimes it makes absolutely no sense. It made absolutely no sense that, I went from nothing to doing this movie with Meryl Streep in Miami. It made no sense that, as I was walking in to do the audition for Walter Mitty, A-list actors for the same role were coming out, and just, they knew they had booked the job because they had done such a great job. and things don't necessarily have to make sense. So realize that, everything I'm saying is just what's worked for me. And it may work for other people, but it may be something slightly different for you. One of the things that I do, and a lot of other actors do, is they try to create a whole history of a character before they go into it. Because that way they know that once they're on set, no matter what happens, they have an idea of the universe of that character. So that was kind of difficult for me, coming up with the universe of that guy and his history that brought him to the point where, he was willing to kill and enjoy, which is really funny. If you guys know me and knew me from when I was a kid, like I grew up in the worst of the worst of the worst neighborhood of the ghetto. Like, if you read my bio, I actually got into a gang fight and was pretty much dead at one point when I was 15 years old. So I grew up around, and I had to actually be tough to survive in that particular environment. So it's not like that's not available to me, but I had to go back and be willing to kind of like carve that particular part of a personality to become the guy that I was. So how's that for a 10-minute long answer to a 30-second
No,
question?
that's great. And I did read that in your bio, and it's funny to me because granted, I've only known you for about a month now. But we did get a chance to talk for a while, and you're like a big teddy bear. So like coming from like that kind of environment is like how how does Terrence become like the sweetest, nicest guy in the world coming from like the roughest part of Detroit?
Well, everything's about choices, Kurt.
Yeah.
Everything is a choice in life and on set and in creating. Everything is a choice. And so when I went through that, prior to that experience, it's almost, now that I think about it, this is very interesting. I just thought about this right now. I was an asshole.
Wait, is North Hollywood in Detroit now?
Well, there was like that North Hollywood part of Detroit. I was actually literally a bit of an asshole myself, and so but it was kind of like I had to do that, I felt, to survive. It's one of those things like the old cliche of, you go into prison or you go into a certain tough area, and to survive, you basically beat up the biggest guy and then everybody wants to be your friend. I was the guy that did that. Like I got really good at fighting so that I would only have to fight once. And so every school year I would fight once and I would be the biggest guy in the school and I would literally go crazy on him. And the next thing I knew, everybody was nice. And so I was trying to, that was what I was doing, except it didn't quite work out when I was 15. But like I said, everything is a choice. I was trying to survive there. And I honestly think that even the people walking around every day that we would consider a horrible person, they're trying to survive from their point of view based on what they're seeing in their mind. After that, I was like, screw this, I could also be funny. So I chose to be funny and make people laugh and bring some sort of lightness to the room as opposed to the opposite. So sue me if you want to.
This is such a compelling, interesting conversation. It could go on forever, but we do only have about 10 minutes left of your time. And Terrence, thank you so much for joining us to provide all of these fascinating stories behind the scenes and great advice for us to take on with all of our various productions. So I always want to give an opportunity for everyone to kind of go around and still get a chance to get a question in before we sign off. So if people have a final question that they want to throw Terrence's way, have at it.
Terrence, not a question, but my impression of you as a profoundly sensitive person is more than confirmed. You are, I really find you admirable. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. How much do I owe you?
I've talked to your agent. It's all set up.
Oh, good. Okay.
Well, we may have to add that to your IMDb page. So
Yeah,
Cool.
I'll echo all the well wishes, Terrence. It was so wonderful to have you here tonight. And you and your wife seem like such a power couple. And I'm really excited to see what you have next in store in your career. And it sounds like we'll also have to have your wife as a member at one of our meetings as well. So
I think she would love that.
That would be great, honestly. I'm sure a lot of our filmmakers and just people interested in the industry would love to hear her knowledge and everything, just as we got to tonight with you. So thanks so much, Terrence. I'm so glad Kurt met you at the film festival. It's a really nice connection for our organization to make, and you spending your time with us tonight. So thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So I did talk extensively with Terrence and Sonia, who have a future project, and did send them. Hopefully, Sonia's had a chance to look at them, because I did send some locations, some location images that were specific to the film that you were talking about, that you were going to try to work on next. So I am trying to convince him to come to Klamath and have them make their next film here. So we'll see if I'm successful on that or not. But I did at least get them some base shots of a few things, that based on what you and Sonia were describing for your next project. So
We do love the area, and you know, as long as you're not too much of an asshole, Kurt, we
right,
will
right.
definitely would love to come back
I
and
still
film.
have my 310 area code, but I no longer get mail from my North Hollywood address on Auckland Avenue, if that
Oh, thank God.
qualifies.
I really had a lot of fun talking to you guys tonight. And you got me to recall the similarity between when I was an a-hole in Detroit and I was an a-hole in North Hollywood. So who would have predicted that, right? I would love to come there and not be an a-hole and make a movie with one of you guys. Maybe even a horror movie. That would be fun, huh?
Right. Yeah. We do have some really cool, interesting
we'd
old,
absolutely.
old houses, some weird architecture that would be great for a horror film that only has to be shot in a house, like you said. So
There you
yeah,
go.
some really cool old, unique Victorian style
Good
architecture.
haunted house picture that we can narrate.
Yeah.
Could be a ton of fun. Terrence, thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, good. Andrew, did you have another question that you wanted to throw Terrence's way?
Well, that's just what I was saying. Terrence, really, thank you so much. It's been fantastic speaking with you and hearing your thoughts on everything. And we hope you can make your way out here. And I'm sure everyone will give you a warm welcome. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I had fun, guys. You have no idea how much fun it's going to be when my wife, if she does decide well, I don't, you haven't given me an official invitation, but if she does get invited, she would love to do it, I'm sure, and it'll be fun.
Cool. And Nina, did you have a question for Terrence?
I don't have a question. I just want to say it was great getting a chance to talk to you and meet you. And I really appreciate all the words of wisdom. So you gave some really great advice. So it will really help out a lot of future filmmakers and stuff. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I had fun. But I'm getting tired. You guys must be getting tired of listening to me by now, huh?
Well, I always want to give our guests too a chance to have the floor as well. So the last couple of minutes here are yours. If there's anything we haven't talked about yet, or any advice or suggestions, anything that you feel maybe caps the conversation that we've had tonight that you would like to provide, and keeping in mind it's not just us on the call, but we are going to post this video. So those who are on film set today and some of our other members will get a chance to check this out as well. So any further advice or suggestions related to the industry based on your extensive career?
So you guys are going to bleep out that part about me being an a-hole, right? Each and every time. I got to tell you, I think one of the things that I got when I came there from the people that were from that area, your area, is there is a passion, there's a certain attitude and a certain passion that you all seem to have in common. I would love for, you know, the Oregon area to become as popular as it has been in the past in terms of filmmaking, because the area is so beautiful and there's just so many different possibilities of locations. I'm very impressed. I look forward to, even if I don't make a movie there, I look forward to seeing movies being made there. And I love the fact that you have this thing, Kurt, because when you get people together, you know, with the same idea and the idea of, you know, what could be done, the possibilities, people actually start thinking and they start coming up with stuff and they start getting pressure to actually start doing stuff, right? So first of all, congratulations and thank you to you for being that guy that is being, you know, taking that leadership role of, you know, trying to inspire.
She's the director, not me. So.
Oh, well, then to both of you. You were the one that approached me. I'm sorry, I didn't meet you earlier, but thank you for what you do. I think that, independent film cannot be said for the fact that it needs to be supported. And there's going to be some real gems coming out every year, from the independent film area. Nobody grows up and, starts out from the womb as an A-list actor or an A-list director or an A-list producer. So we need people to start from someplace, and yeah, just keep doing it. Keep, writers write, producers produce, directors direct, actors act any way possible, and get your tribe, because you find certain people you work with and you just want to work with them again. And if you find that's where the magic can really happen. They talk about this phrase of let's make magic. Well, in my opinion, magic really does happen when the right people get together and they're on the same page and they believe in a project and they got a good project. There's just no limit to what can happen. You might get a call coming home one day from Peter Farrelly saying, "Would you read my script?" You know what I'm saying?
Well, with that, Terrence, thank you so much for spending a couple of hours with us and sharing so many great stories and advice. We so appreciate it. You and Sonia are always welcome here, whether you're formally our guests or you just want to come hang out with us again at a future meeting. We have had a few guests in the past come back and like, hey, that was kind of fun. I just want to be a part of the conversation again. So you are always welcome here. We would love to show you around Klamath if there is the opportunity for whether it's location scouting or just a trip, to have you two come up here again. And please do stay in touch. If there is anything at all that our organization can do to help out, please let us know. But just thank you again on behalf of all of our membership, those who are here on this call and those who could not be here. Thanks for all of the great work and TV and film that you've done to entertain us, and for entertaining us tonight as well. We sincerely appreciate it.
Sure. And if you guys want to stay in touch with me in the meantime, you can follow me on Instagram at Terence Bernie Hines. TerenceBerniehines. And you might find something that might make you smile.
Appreciate the time. Thank you everyone for being here. And we'll see you next month, first Thursday from 6 to 8. As always, we'll do these meetings.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.